Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the program today. When the Nigerian Education Loan Fund launched in May last year, many Nigerians doubted if it would be any different from the failed student loan boards of the past. The institutions that promised access but delivered bureaucracy and disappointment. Today, that story seems to be changing. The fund says it has recorded over 1 million applications and disbursed more than 116 billion naira to over 600,000 students across the country. But alongside that milestone comes mounting scrutiny from complaints about pending applications and delayed disbursements to concerns raised by ASU and a recent ICPC investigation into discrepancies and what have you. So we ask tonight whether or not this progress is real as real as it looks on paper, or are there cracks beneath the surface of this bold experiment in educational equity? We'll get answers from the man at the center of it all, Akintunde Sawyer, who's Managing Director and CEO of the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFUND. He joins us live from Abuja studio. Mr. Sawyer, good to see you again.
Likewise. How are you? Good to be here again. Thank you.
Great. So I'm looking at the numbers now from the dashboard as of yesterday. 1,067,655 applications since official launch. What does this figure really represent beyond the numbers?
Okay, so actually the figures have gone up a little bit. They're now 1,075,000. What do these figures represent? They represent the hope of millions of Nigerians being realized because they now have a place to go to actually be able to gain access to education because the funding is now available. It's been made available by this administration. It means that many, many students who otherwise would perhaps have not been able to progress their education because they'd have to drop out because of something that's devastating perhaps that's happened in their families, now are able to complete their education. It represents a future for Nigeria that is bright, that is hopeful, and that has been promised over many, many decades. I think now we're going to see the way Nigeria is going to soar because the demand is there for education. The intent is there to take up the education for the first time ever in this country, in recent times anyway. The political will across the length and breadth of this country for education to be prioritized is there. It's really clear. You know, over 1 million applications shows that this was the right move for this administration to make. It was the right vision that the president had. And many, many people beyond those of us who are here today are going to benefit from this.
All right.
The nation is going to benefit from this.
Yes, so you've disbursed 116 billion naira so far. Is there a breakdown of how this money has been distributed across universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education?
Yes. I mean, essentially, the implementation of this is around ensuring that students who apply for this loan and who are eligible for this loan, who are attending universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, receive the loan. And what do I mean by receive the loan? Essentially, for the institutional fees, which amount to 65 billion naira disbursed today, it means that we're paying the fees for students who have been successful applicants to be able to access classes, tutorials, seminars, lectures at these institutions. It really gives them the hope for a future that is brighter. That's what the 65 billion disbursed in institutional fees represents. We've disbursed 51 billion naira in upkeep loans. This act, this law, when it first came into being, when it was first signed on the 12th of June 2023, did not have a provision for stipends, for pocket money. The president, in his wisdom, decided to send the bill back to the National Assembly for it to be repealed and reenacted, and that that 51 billion that I spoke about just now as upkeep is one of the outcomes, the beneficial outcomes of that repeal and reenactment signed into law on the 4th of April 2024. It represents a lot of hope for students. It means that students can go to classes, you know, with some money in their pockets. They can buy literature, they can buy books, they can buy stationery, they can buy food if they like, because it's cash straight into their bank accounts. They can use the funds to ensure that they can focus on the fees that have already been paid for. I need to add that all of this, by the way, is interest-free.
Yeah.
So this is the most non-onerous loan arrangement that we could come across anywhere, really.
I'm just interested to know which institution has gotten more, universities, polytechnics, or colleges of education?
So, listen, I think it's clear that the universities are the ones, they have the largest body of students amongst them, and that's where the greatest interest is. A lot of Nigerians want a university degree. Now, that's not necessarily what we need in terms of the proportion, but to be very direct in answering your question, the universities have received the biggest chunk of funding.
It sounds good, but I'm hoping that we can also scratch beneath the surface. For instance, the question of what the average approval to disbursement timeline is, because just before this show, I had searched for NELFUND on X, and we're seeing a couple of complaints from applicants saying their status has remained pending since October without a valid response from customer care.
Okay, so let me just remind all of us that October was 2 weeks ago, okay? So October wasn't a long time ago, and we need time to process these applications. It is important that students and people who are expecting funds and who are generally anxious about any sort of delay, whether it's hours, minutes, days, are going to be shouting very loudly if they don't get it when they're expecting to get it. But I will say this to you, because your question is around what the timelines are. We aim for a timeline of about 30 days to process these loans. However, there are a number of things that need to be taken into consideration. First of all, the student needs to apply on time. They need to apply for these loans on time, because the earlier they apply, the quicker the process is likely to work for them. They need to ensure that their applications are accurate. I can tell you that some students unfortunately place or put the wrong account number into their dashboard or into their profile account. And of course, if you put the wrong account number there, there are going to be delays. We carry out fairly rigorous checks, and if we're not sure if the students haven't uploaded the right sort of information that we require, perhaps an admission number or a school ID card, that will bring delays. Having said that, this is a fully automated process. And at the end of it, we ask the institutions, the universities, the polytechnics, the colleges of education to verify and confirm that the list of students that we have sent to them as a result of applications that have come through to us are bona fide students of the institution, that they're still there, they're alive and well, they're attending the institution, they've matriculated perhaps. And that process of the institution verifying and sending back to us with a signature from the management is turned around at different rates depending on the institution.
So you're saying that
doing this,
you're
others
saying
take their time.
Yes,
but until
Mr. Sawyer,
we get that confirmation back from the institution,
indeed,
we can't turn it around. I'll tell you something else. We expect the institutions to upload information onto our database. It is that information that is cross-checked when the students apply. If the information is late or delayed in being uploaded, or is incomplete or inaccurate, the student cannot complete their application.
I hear you clearly, Mr. Sawyer. Allow me to butt in if you can hear me. I just want to follow up quickly on a few things you have said.
On the institutions. And this is critical in terms of the timelines.
Do you have a feedback system or dashboard where applicants can see in real time the status of their application or reasons for delay?
So the answer, real time generally means that, you can see things progressing minute by minute or second by second. Of course, we don't have a real time progression. What we do have is a status update every time the status of the application changes. So once the application is made, the student will see a sign saying, your application is pending. After some time, when we've verified all the uploaded information and we've cross-checked that the person is who they say they are, it moves to verified. That means that we've gone through our first stage of verification. Well, once we've verified, we do some additional checks, and then it moves to approved. They can see all of this on their dashboard. Beyond approved was once it's approved, and if you go back to what I said now about the verification by the institutions and confirmation, once that comes back, it moves to disbursed. Now, the only other piece between the institution verifying and us disbursing is us carrying out our final audit checks to make sure that the fees are accurate, all the other pieces of information that have come back from the institution, because sometimes the institutions will make corrections to what we send them. Once we've done that audit process, that cross-checking process, we disperse. And the students can see that disbursement has happened. And let me tell you what disbursement means. Disbursement means that we have paid on behalf of 1,000 students, perhaps, to University X or Y, or College of Education A or B, or Polytechnic C or D. We have paid the funds on behalf of those students to that institution. That's what disburse means. As soon as disbursement to the institution is made, we then begin to give the monthly upkeep of 20,000 naira to the student direct to their bank account.
Based on the figures from your dashboard as of yesterday, we're looking at 1 million plus applications and 600K plus beneficiaries. Between application and beneficiaries, there are approximately 400,000 applicants who are awaiting disbursement. How do you respond to those frustrations, and what internal mechanisms exist to track or escalate stalled applications?
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that's a very important question. But again, let me give you some context. In the last 24 hours, we've received 6,000 applications. In the last week, we've received nearly 60,000 applications. So when you put that in context, the rate of applications is always going to be much higher than the rate at which we verify, approve, and disburse, because we have to carry out checks. I need to be very clear on this. This is not an instant loan. It's not a loan that you apply for and then minutes later a decision is taken and the funds are disbursed. There are a number of factors that make it so. One is that institutions have different sessions. They have different start dates for the session, different end dates for their session. And with every session, we receive new data from the institutions. That gap that you see between disbursement and applications is a factor of what I just described. Applications come in at a very high rate, and we appreciate that. We put a lot of work in to make sure that there is awareness across the country. The president wants everybody to know about this loan, and he's been driving and pushing us hard to go around the country educating everybody in every nook and cranny of this country, the north, the south, the east, and the west. And that's a reflection, the effort that we've put into that going around the country is a reflection of just how fast applications come in. However, we must ensure that we are disbursing funds at the right amount to the right institution on behalf of the right students, and that we're disbursing funds to the right individuals. We need to be absolutely sure. And so you will never see that gap disappear unless we become an instant loan organization, which we are not going to be because of some of the reasons I've alluded to just now. But essentially, what I can tell you is that we work as fast as we can. The fastest we've ever disbursed from application to disbursement is about 10 days. So we can do this really quickly. However, as I said, there are some dependencies, and we need to be sure that those dependencies are accounted for and are managed properly so that we're not in a situation where we've disbursed very quickly only to discover that we've disbursed wrongly. We're not going to do that.
Earlier in the year, it was reported that ICPC had launched an investigation into discrepancies in loan disbursements. Perhaps you could walk us through what your agency has done so far to cooperate with the probe, and how are you handling the institutions alleged of making unauthorized deductions? When should we expect a full audit or public disclosure of your verification of these funds?
Okay, so look, let's be very clear. You know, I haven't come to television to start accusing people of doing things or making allegations. The ICPC is an organization under the aegis of the federal government of Nigeria who are empowered to investigate anything relating to corrupt practices. It's an independent organization and they're doing a very good job. Now, when allegations are made by anybody, whether it's a newspaper or a media house or anybody, in fact, it is absolutely important and crucial that the investigating agency is able to check. What I can tell you is that they've checked everything that we're doing at NELFUND, and they are, to date, satisfied with our processes, with our modus operandi. They understand exactly what the complexities are about what we're doing. We've been very open with them. They've been very open with us about what their issues are. Now, in terms of the institutions and unauthorized deductions, I've seen no evidence that deductions are unauthorized. However, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. What I can tell you is that it is important to understand that when we disburse, when we actually pay on behalf of these students, some of them, because they applied late in some instances, in other instances, because we started this scheme midway through a session, it is important to understand that the institutions, the schools, have deadlines have set deadlines for their students, and they expect them to pay because they need funds to run the institution. Sometimes the students have made the payments and the NELFUND money comes later or comes after. In those situations, it is imperative that the institutions refund to the student, not carry over to the following year because they may be taking the loan the year after. Refund to the students whatever they've been paid. Otherwise, the institutions are holding double pay, if you like, or double funding. One from the NELFUND, which the student has taken as a loan, and one from the student or their family that has been provided to the institution. So it is absolutely crucial that those refunds are made. Otherwise, the students become incredibly frustrated. Now, in certain cases, delays have come about with institutions delaying these refunds. I think we need to have some empathy in that regard because it is the first time that the institutions have found themselves in a situation where they're having to make these mass refunds. And by the way, they cannot make these refunds without the banking system deducting something from the fund. So obviously there are some deductions that may be authorized. I don't know. I don't know every single case where this is going on. But what is disheartening is institutions who delay refunding to the students or not at all. And I believe that the ICPC has done a grand job in ensuring that these refunds happen. I know that they've recovered funds or, from some institutions that have received from the students and received from the NELFUND. So that's essentially what I can say about it. And
Mr. Sawyer,
that, it's only fair for us to really look at this critically. We're in a learning phase of this process.
I hear you.
We've never done this before. The Tinubu government has introduced a scheme across the country.
You have done it for a year. You have done it for a year and 5 months now. Perhaps enough time. It's also enough learning curve for you. You're a sweet talker, but if you keep taking this much time, we'll have enough time to explore the many angles our lovers to talk about for the benefit of our viewers. We have just about 5 more minutes, right? Precisely how are you ensuring that this process remains corruption-free, especially because you're dealing with data from multiple tertiary institutions? Are there internal audits or third-party verifications to prevent ghost beneficiaries and also ensure that these funds reach real students?
Okay, so I'm sorry. I think there's been a bit of a sound issue. It's not that I wanted to hug the airtime. But listen, we use data to verify students. We use NIN, provided obviously by NIMC. We use JAM registration number from JAM. We use BVN numbers to verify and check where people are. We use the name, the date of birth, and of course the matriculation or admission number of the student to also cross-check. Anyone who has all these pieces of information has either hijacked someone's identity or it's them. In many cases, it's almost impossible to benefit from hijacking identity because you obviously have to go to the school and actually be part of the school because we check with the school as well. So it's important to understand that that is a major blocker, a checkmate for any corruption at that level. Now, the misappropriation of funds is something entirely different. And I can tell you that because of the way we do this, where we pay the institution on behalf of the student, the funds must be used for the benefit of the student by the institution. The student gets the 20,000 naira per month stipend, and that money is for them to spend as they see fit. We have a disbursement committee. We've involved the EFCC, the ICPC, the Federal Ministry of Education, the Central Bank of Nigeria, who hold all the funds for us. We've involved all of them at a very high level and in a disbursement committee that oversees and can see exactly what we're doing in terms of disbursement. And of course, we report to a board who also have the right to check and look at our budget performance and see what we're doing. And over and above all of that, you were referring to a dashboard. We publish a dashboard every single day of our performance, of our applications, disbursements. We break it down, number of institutions we've paid. That dashboard is fairly explicit. I know you said we've only got 5 minutes left, but let me stop there in case you have a final parting question for me. Not so much sweet talk.
One of the major differences between NELFUND, Mr. Sawyer, and the previous loan boards we've had is what you mentioned about the zero interest structure and also the income contingent repayment model. But there are concerns about the sustainability of this model, especially if unemployment rates remain high. What happens if graduates can't find jobs for several years? Wouldn't that threaten the revolving fund needed to sustain the scheme? Does that bother you?
It bothers me greatly, Nifemi. Look, if you start a scheme like this, it can only be considered successful if you're able to sustain it and keep it going. There are a number of things in the Act that are very clever. One, it allows the NELFUND to invest the funds for an income. Secondly, we are able to accept donations and other types of funding flows from non-governmental actors. Now, those two are in addition to this idea of this being a revolving fund where people get work and then they put money back into the scheme because they're paying back their loans. But I can tell you, there are other plans that we have in place to try to ensure sustainability of this. And if you look around the world, if you look at schemes like the scheme in Malaysia, which is almost entirely private sector driven today, we have so many directions to go in and so many options. One of the really good or key advantages we've got is that we've watched and we've looked at student loan schemes from across the world. We've seen the mistakes that that people across the world have made, and we are seeking to make this even better. And I'm 100% convinced that given the political will that we have behind this, given the wind behind our sail, we have the wherewithal, the time, the interest, and the intellectual strength to make this work. This scheme belongs to all Nigerians. We will all benefit from this, whether you're a student or not. It will affect all areas of the economy and all areas of the polity. So we should all chip in, come with our ideas, and see how we can make sure that this scheme carries on way beyond a time that we can imagine.
Well, we have completely run out of time. Mr. Sawyer, it's always a nice time talking to you. Hopefully we'll find more time to expand this further. Akintunde Sawyer is MD NELFUND. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on the show, Nifemi. Great to be here again. Thank you. Have a good evening.
And that's our show today, everyone. Remember, you can watch this conversation again at midnight and 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.